The space station called Eternal Harmony was dying. It had floated in the darkness for 6 days now, its lights dead, its machines silent. 40 billion people across 100 worlds depended on this station. It controlled their air, their water, their heat. Without it, they would all die. The aliens had tried everything. They came first. They were tall and thin with skin like silver glass. Their scientists were famous across the galaxy. They brought machines that could read the thoughts of atoms. They brought tools that could bend time itself. They worked for 2 days straight. Nothing happened. The station stayed dark. They came next. They were short and wide, covered in thick brown fur. Their priests carried sacred crystals that had solved impossible problems for 10,000 years. They chanted. They prayed. They broke 3 of their most holy objects trying to wake the station. Nothing worked. They came last. They were insects, each one the size of a human hand. But when 2,000 of them linked their minds together, they became smarter than any computer ever built. They crawled across every surface of the station. They analyzed every wire, every circuit, every tiny piece of dust. After 3 days, they gave up. The problem was beyond them. High Chancellor stood in the main hall of the station. He was made of purple crystal, and he had ruled this place for 300 years. Now he watched his world fall apart. Ships were leaving the sector. Colonies were running out of air. Children were crying on 100 different planets, asking their parents why the sky was getting cold. Had sent messages to every civilization he knew. He had begged for help. Most had already tried and failed. The rest had nothing to offer. Then on the 7th day, a small ship appeared. It was ugly. It was old. It had rust on its hull and a name painted on the side in a language did not know. The name was the Lucky Rooster. The ship asked for permission to dock. Did not know what a rooster was. He did not care. He let them in. 2 humans walked out of the ship, had heard of humans before. They were a young species from a small planet called Earth. They were not very smart by galactic standards. They lived short lives. They had no special powers. Most aliens thought they were harmless and a little bit silly. The first human was a female named Park. She was 28 years old. She wore dirty overalls and carried a bag of tools. Her hair was messy and she had grease on her face. She looked around the dark station like she was looking at a broken refrigerator. The second human was a male named. He was 30 years old. He was taller than, with kind eyes and a calm face. He carried a scanner in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. He seemed relaxed, like he had seen broken things before. Approached them. His crystal body made clicking sounds as he walked. Behind him stood 50 of the greatest scientists from 50 different worlds. They all stared at the humans with tired, hopeless eyes. "Welcome," said. His voice came from a small machine on his chest. "I am High Chancellor. We are grateful you have come, but I must be honest with you. Our greatest minds have failed. This station is powered by technology from the precursors. They were gods who lived before any of us were born. We do not fully understand their machines. We can only worship them and hope they keep working." Scratched her nose. "Okay, what seems to be the problem?" Blinked. He had 17 eyes, so this took a while. "The problem is that the heart of harmony has stopped. It is the core of this station. It has run without stopping for 12,000 years. Now it is dead, and we do not know why." "Can I see it?" asked. Led them through long dark hallways. Emergency lights gave everything a red glow. They passed hundreds of aliens, all of them scared, all of them whispering prayers in languages could not understand. Finally, they reached the center of the station. The heart of harmony was beautiful. It was a sphere the size of a house, made of metals that seemed to flow like water. Strange patterns covered its surface, patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Even dead, it felt powerful, ancient, holy. Walked around it slowly. She looked at it from different angles. She touched it with her hand. She knocked on it twice with her knuckles. Ran his scanner over the surface, humming softly to himself. The aliens watched in silence. This was the work of gods. These humans were treating it like a broken car engine. After about 4 minutes, stopped walking. She put her hands on her hips. She looked at the massive sphere with a thoughtful expression. "Okay," she said, "I have a question." Leaned forward. The 50 scientists held their breath. This was it. This was the moment. What ancient wisdom would the human share? What impossible solution had she discovered? "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" asked. The room went completely silent. Felt his crystal body crack slightly from shock. 3 scientists fainted and hit the floor with soft thuds. A priest dropped his sacred crystal. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, but nobody noticed because they were all too busy staring at the human with expressions of pure horror. Looked around at all of them. She seemed confused. "What?" she said. "It is a simple question." The silence in the room was so heavy that could almost feel it pressing against her skin. Every alien in the chamber was staring at her like she had just suggested setting fire to a baby. The Crystal Chancellor had turned from purple to a deep shade of gray. This was apparently a very bad sign. "Did I say something wrong?" asked quietly. Shrugged, he was still drinking his coffee. "I do not think so." Finally found his voice. It came out high and scratchy like metal scraping against glass. "You cannot be serious. You cannot possibly be serious. This is precursor technology. It is sacred. It is beyond our understanding. The last civilization that tried to turn off a precursor machine lost their entire solar system. Everything. Gone. Billions of people turned to dust in less than 1 second. Raised her eyebrows. "Really? What happened?" "Nobody knows," shouted. The other aliens stepped back from him. They had never seen the Chancellor shout before. "That is the point. The precursors built things that should not be touched. They should only be observed and maintained. We keep them running. We never ever turn them off." "But it is already off," pointed out. Opened his mouth. Then he closed it. Then he opened it again. No sound came out. His crystal body made small crackling noises like ice breaking. "She makes a good point," said. He had finished his coffee and was now examining the base of the great sphere. "The machine is broken. It is not working. You cannot make a broken thing more broken by trying to fix it." "You do not understand," said a scientist. Her name was Precious Cloud and she was over 400 years old. Tears were running down her silver face. "We have studied this machine for centuries. We know every inch of its surface. We have written 10 million books about its beauty and its power, but we have never, not once, considered touching its core systems. It would be like trying to edit the laws of physics. It would be madness." Walked over to where was kneeling. He was pointing at something near the bottom of the sphere. "What did you find?" she asked. "Look at this." There was a small panel at the base of the machine. It was about the size of his hand. It was covered in dust and some kind of hard, crusty substance that looked like old barnacles. Nobody had cleaned this area in a very long time. Maybe nobody had ever cleaned it. Pulled out a small brush from her tool bag and started scraping away the dirt. The aliens watched her with horror, like she was performing surgery on a living god. Under the dirt there was a button. It was red, it was simple. It had a word written on it in 17 different languages. One of those languages was Korean. The word said reset. Oh, said, "Well, that is convenient." Precious Cloud walked over on shaking legs. She looked at the button. She read the word. Her silver skin turned white. "This has been here the whole time," she whispered. "For 12,000 years, and we never knew, we never looked." To be fair, said, there was a lot of dirt. "But why?" Precious Cloud asked. Her voice was breaking. "Why would the precursors put a reset button on their holy machine? It makes no sense. They were gods. Gods do not need reset buttons." Shrugged. Maybe they were not gods. Maybe they were just really good engineers. And good engineers always put reset buttons on their machines. Because good engineers know that everything breaks eventually. And when things break, sometimes the easiest fix is to just start over. The aliens looked at each other. This idea was so strange to them, so alien. They had spent thousands of years building religions around the precursor technology. They had written laws forbidding anyone from touching the sacred machines. They had created entire schools of philosophy about the perfection of precursor design. And now, a human woman with grease on her face was telling them that the precursors were just regular people who liked simple solutions. "I am going to press the button," said. "No," screamed. He tried to run toward her, but his crystal legs were shaking too much. "You will kill us all. You will destroy the station. You will create a hole in space that will swallow the entire sector." "Maybe," said. "Or maybe the machine will turn back on and everything will be fine." "How can you be so calm about this?" demanded. "Are you not afraid? Do humans not feel fear?" Thought about this for a moment. Of course we feel fear, but we also feel curiosity. And right now I am very curious about what this button does. Also, everyone is going to die anyway if the station does not start working. So really, we do not have much to lose. Nodded, she is right. The situation cannot get much worse. Reached toward the button. 50 aliens closed their eyes. Some of them started praying. One insect fainted and fell off the ceiling. "Here goes nothing," said. She pressed the button. The moment's finger touched the red button. Everything changed. The great sphere made a sound. It was deep and low, like thunder rolling across mountains. The floor began to shake. The walls began to crack. Dust fell from the ceiling like gray snow. Every alien in the room fell to their knees, convinced that death had finally come for them. Covered his 17 eyes with his crystal arms. He did not want to see the end. He had lived for 300 years, and now it was all going to end because of one foolish human and her stupid question. But death did not come. Instead, lights started turning on. First one, then two, then hundreds. The darkness that had filled the station for 7 days began to disappear. Emergency sirens stopped screaming. Air vents started humming. The temperature, which had been dropping slowly toward freezing, began to climb back to normal. The heart of harmony was waking up. The sphere began to glow. Soft at first, like morning light through a window, then brighter and brighter until everyone had to shield their eyes. Colors danced across its surface, colors that had no names in any language. The patterns on its skin started moving, flowing like rivers of light. And then, with a sound like a giant taking its first breath, the machine roared back to life. Power flooded through the station. Systems that had been silent for days suddenly remembered how to work. Communication channels opened. Navigation computers started calculating. Medical bays turned their machines back on. Kitchens began heating food. Across 100 worlds, 40 billion people received the same message at the exact same moment. It appeared on their screens, their phones, their walls. It said, "Thank you for your patience. Normal operations have resumed. Have a pleasant day." Back in the chamber was watching the sphere with a small smile on her face. "See," she said, "that was not so hard." Slowly lowered his arms. His crystal body was still shaking. He looked at the beautiful, glowing sphere, alive and healthy after being dead for so long. He looked at the human woman standing next to it, hands in her pockets, looking pleased with herself. "How," he whispered, "how did you know?" "I did not know," admitted. "I just guessed. Most machines work the same way. They are complicated on the inside, but the problems are usually simple. Memory gets full. Systems get confused. Errors pile up until nothing works anymore. You turn the machine off, all those problems go away. You turn it back on, everything starts fresh." "But the precursors," Precious Cloud said. She was still crying, but now her tears were from relief instead of fear. "Their technology is beyond our understanding. It uses principles of science that we have not yet discovered." "Sure," said. He had found another cup of coffee somewhere and was drinking it calmly. But a reset button is a reset button. Does not matter how complicated the machine is. The button does the same thing everywhere. It makes the machine forget all its problems and start over from the beginning. The aliens looked at each other. This idea was changing everything they thought they knew. For thousands of years, they had believed that precursor technology was magic, holy, untouchable. Now they were learning that it followed the same basic rules as every other machine in the universe. "This is incredible," said one of the priests. He was holding the pieces of his broken crystal, but he no longer seemed upset about it. "Do you think there are reset buttons on other precursor machines?" "Probably," said. "You should check. Look for small panels covered in dirt. The buttons are always hidden in obvious places." Stepped forward. His body was no longer shaking. His color had returned to a healthy purple. He looked at with something new in his 17 eyes. It was not fear anymore. It was not confusion. It was respect. "Park," he said formally, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you. You have saved 40 billion lives today. You have done what our greatest scientists could not do, and you did it by asking a simple question that none of us were brave enough to ask." Looked embarrassed. "It was nothing special, really. This is basic stuff where I come from. Every human child learns this." "Then human children are wiser than our oldest philosophers," said. "We must learn from you. We must understand how your people think. Because clearly, we have been thinking about things the wrong way for a very long time." Finished his coffee and crushed the cup in his hand. "Happy to help, but I should warn you, this is just the beginning. Humans have a lot of simple ideas that seem to work pretty well. You might not like all of them." "What do you mean?" asked. Grinned. "Well, there is also hitting things when they do not work. That helps sometimes too." His crystal body made a sound like breaking glass. Whether it was laughter or terror, nobody could tell. Outside the station, ships were already turning around. The evacuation was over. People were going home. On 100 different worlds, families were hugging each other, grateful to be alive. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, ancient precursor machines sat waiting. Their creators had been gone for millions of years. Their secrets had been lost to time. But somewhere on each machine, hidden under layers of dust and forgotten by history, there was a small red button, waiting to be pressed. News travels fast in space. Within 1 week, every civilization in the galaxy had heard about what happened on Eternal Harmony Station. They called it the Reset Incident. They talked about it in schools and temples and government buildings. They argued about it in bars and restaurants and family dinners. 2 unknown humans had done the impossible. They had fixed sacred precursor technology by pressing a button that had been there the whole time, a button that nobody had ever noticed because they were all too afraid to look. The reactions were strange and wonderful. The calculation priests held an emergency meeting. It lasted for 3 days. Half of them believed the humans were prophets sent by the universe to teach them wisdom. The other half believed they were demons sent to destroy everything they held sacred. In the end, they could not decide, so they created a new category. They called humans holy chaos. It was not a compliment, but it was not an insult either. The scientific consortium sent a formal request to Earth. They wanted 1,700 human consultants to review their entire technology system. They had realized with great embarrassment that they had been overcomplicating things for centuries. Maybe a fresh perspective would help. The collective sent a very short message. It said, "We tried your method on our Queen Mother. She was acting strange for many years. We put her to sleep for 1 day. When she woke up, she was normal again. Thank you. You are now honorary Nest friends." Read this message 3 times. "Did they just restart their queen?" she asked. Nodded. "I think so. Apparently it worked." "That is a little disturbing." "Very." But the strangest reaction came from ordinary people. Across the galaxy, aliens began to test the human theory. They started turning things off and on again. Broken computers, malfunctioning robots, ships that would not start, medical machines that gave wrong results. To everyone's amazement, it worked about 60% of the time. 60%. That was huge. Before, most aliens would spend weeks trying to understand a problem before they tried to fix it. They would call experts. They would run tests. They would hold meetings and write reports. And sometimes, after all that effort, they still could not solve the problem. Now they just pressed a button, and more than half the time that was enough. This changed everything. And became famous. They did not want to be famous. They just wanted to go home and continue their normal jobs. But the galaxy would not let them. Every news channel wanted to interview them. Every government wanted to meet them. Every scientist wanted to study them. "This is getting ridiculous," complained. They were on their 47th interview being broadcast live to over 1 trillion viewers. The host was a being made of blue jelly named Soft Morning. It had no face, but it seemed very excited. "Please," Soft Morning bubbled, "tell us more about human thinking. Your methods are revolutionary." "They are not revolutionary," said. He looked tired. "They are basic. This is the first thing we learn when we study machines. If something does not work, restart it. If that does not work, check if it is plugged in. If that does not work, hit it gently. These are simple steps." "Hit it," Soft Morning quivered with shock. "You strike your machines." "Sometimes, not hard, just a tap. It helps shake loose any parts that might be stuck." The audience gasped, could see millions of comments flooding the screen. Aliens were typing things like "barbarians" and "genius." "And I tried this on my ship and it exploded, but only a little bit." "Let me ask you something important," Soft Morning said. "Do you apply this thinking to everything, not just machines but also life?" "Thought about this?" "Yes, I think so. Humans believe in fresh starts. If something is broken, we try to fix it. If we cannot fix it, we start over. We do this with jobs, relationships, homes. We even do it with ourselves. If you are unhappy, you change. You try something new. You restart your life." "This is terrifying," Soft Morning said quietly. "Why?" "Because most civilizations do not think this way. We believe in tradition, in continuity, in keeping things the same because that is how they have always been. The idea of simply stopping and starting again. It is frightening. What if you lose something important? What if you forget who you are?" Smiled. It was a gentle smile full of understanding. "That is the risk, but the reward is worth it. When you restart, you get a chance to be better. You keep the good parts and throw away the bad parts. You learn from your mistakes and try not to make them again. And if you make new mistakes, then you restart again, as many times as you need." Soft Morning was silent for a long moment. Its blue jelly body rippled slowly, like it was processing this new information. Finally, it spoke again. "Park, I think your people may be the most frightening and inspiring species I have ever encountered. You are not afraid of failure. You are not afraid of endings. You treat every disaster as an opportunity to begin again." Shrugged. "We do not really have a choice. Human lives are short. We do not have time to be afraid." The interview ended. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. And somewhere, in quiet rooms on distant worlds, aliens began to think about things differently. Maybe starting over was not so scary after all. 1 year passed since press the red button. In that time, the galaxy changed more than it had changed in the previous 1,000 years. It started small. Engineers began looking for hidden panels on their machines. Scientists started questioning old traditions. Teachers began telling their students that it was okay to ask simple questions, even if those questions seemed stupid. Then it grew bigger. The phrase, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" became official policy. The Galactic Council added it to their emergency response list. It was now the first thing anyone tried when something went wrong. Before calling experts, before running tests, before panicking, just turn it off. Wait 10 seconds, turn it back on. 3 major universities carved the phrase into their entrance walls. Students walked past it every day, reminded that the simplest solution was often the best one. Several religions developed new beliefs around the concept. They called it the cycle of renewal. They taught that everything in the universe was meant to rest and restart. Stars died and became new stars. Civilizations fell and new ones rose. Even the universe itself might one day end, only to begin again from nothing. Found the whole thing embarrassing. We did not invent anything new, she told one evening. They were back on their ship, the Lucky Rooster, finally free from interviews and ceremonies. Outside the window, stars drifted past in the darkness. We just asked an obvious question. That is exactly why it matters, said. He was cooking dinner in the small kitchen. The smell of spicy noodles filled the ship. They were so busy being scared that they forgot to be practical. We reminded them. I guess. Leaned back in her chair. The past year had been exhausting. She had met kings and queens and high chancellors. She had visited planets made of diamond and stations that floated between galaxies. She had shaken hands with beings that had no hands and had conversations with creatures that spoke in colors instead of words. But through all of it, she kept asking the same question, and through all of it, the answer was usually the same. Turn it off, turn it back on, see what happens. A message appeared on her screen. It was from the Crystal Chancellor who had been so afraid of her 1 year ago. Now he sent her messages every week, updating her on the station's progress. Dear Park, the message said, I hope you are well. I wanted to tell you that we found another precursor machine last month. It was a weapons satellite floating above a populated planet. It had been active for centuries, threatening to destroy anything that came close. Our military could not stop it. Our scientists could not understand it. Everyone was very scared. Then one of my assistants, a young named Brightwater, remembered your teaching. She flew to the satellite alone. She found a small hatch on the side. Inside was a power switch. She turned it off. The satellite went dark. The threat ended. We have decided to give Brightwater a medal. But really, the medal belongs to you. You taught us that courage is not about facing impossible challenges. It is about trying simple solutions when everyone else is too afraid to try anything at all. Thank you, Park. Thank you for showing us how to restart. Your friend. Read the message twice. She felt a warm feeling in her chest. Not pride exactly. Something quieter than that. Satisfaction, maybe. The knowledge that she had made a small difference in a very big universe. Dinner is ready, called. She put down her screen and walked to the kitchen. Had made her favorite dish, with extra vegetables and a perfect soft egg on top. They sat together at their tiny table, eating in comfortable silence. You know what the funny thing is, said finally. What? Back on Earth, I was nobody special, just a mechanic. I fixed refrigerators and air conditioners and sometimes cars. I never finished university. I never won any awards. My parents were worried about me. Smiled, and now you are a galactic hero. Right, because I asked a stupid question. She laughed softly. I think that says something important about the universe. What does it say? Took a bite of her noodles. She thought about the question for a long moment. Outside, a comet streaked past, leaving a tail of ice and light. It says that complicated problems do not always need complicated solutions. It says that experts can be wrong. It says that the person who knows the least might see things that the person who knows the most cannot see. She paused. And it says that asking questions is never stupid, even the simple ones, especially the simple ones. Nodded, that is very wise. Is it? I feel like I am just saying obvious things. The best wisdom is always obvious. That is why people miss it. They finished their dinner, washed the dishes while set the course for their next destination. There was a space station near the edge of the galaxy that was having trouble with its water recycling system. They had called for human consultants, specifically requesting someone who could ask simple questions. Typed in the coordinates, the ship hummed as it prepared to jump. Before she activated the engines, she looked out the window one last time. The stars were beautiful tonight, millions of them scattered like diamonds on black velvet. Each one was a sun. Each sun had planets. Each planet had people. And now, because of one small question asked in one small room, all of those people knew something they had not known before. When things break, try turning them off and on again. It was such a simple idea, but sometimes simple ideas changed everything. Smiled and pressed the button to jump. The lucky rooster disappeared into the darkness, carrying its two ordinary humans toward their next impossible problem. Behind them, the galaxy kept spinning, filled with ancient machines and sacred traditions and terrified aliens who were slowly, carefully learning not to be afraid. Learning to restart. Learning to begin again.